Thanks to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video and helping get rid of the bags under my eyes. Hi, I'm Rob Dahm, and this is the world's only 12 rotor about to fire up. Real quick, for the people that are new to this whole thing, I will show you very quickly everything that's involved. Obviously, a raw, massive chunk of 7075 aluminum built by Tyson Garvin. Absolutely incredible, the world's only 12 rotor. It's built by him, not by me. We decided to add 3 turbos to it. And so supporting all of that and this intake manifold is not as easy as you think. It's not only getting the turbos to work well, because as you can tell, they're not fully connected. They're gonna spin when the exhaust goes on, but it's preparing this thing for approximately 5,000 to 6,000 horsepower. So this video is gonna be emotional. It's gonna be some highs, some lows that took hours upon hours of work. And so right now, we're gonna do the boring part, which is making sure that it won't blow up. And then we're gonna do the fun part, which is making sure it runs. Joel, he's taking way too much enjoyment in other people's mispleasure. And the issue is that right now, they don't align fully. You see the issue now?
No, not yet. You haven't given me any time to look at it myself. You just throw me in front of the camera, tell me I'm fucking up.
Look at the back one. Look at the back one.
Give me a second. Hey, give me a second. Yeah.
The one where they touch,
Just takes them off of it.
Yeah, and then the back one probably just some heat, and just get them lined up. So.
That was insane.
Remember that one broke off when you pulled it off? So I think that had something to do.
Oh, damn it. I guess I won't do that again.
Is a lot of work done. I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. I'm wearing my tighter shirts to fat shame myself into eating less. This is 24 ignition coils. They're all there. They're all testing out positively. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like on the coil packs. Nice and clean. They just pop right on. Super easy. Each one of them just gets right tight, clean in there. I'm not going to push them in because I need to actually pin them out in a second, but I just want to show you what the...
Sure, that's why.
Yeah. They are kind of a pain in the ass, but I actually do need to just place them together. The way I put the labels there on the bottom side, damn it. That's the consistency that I'm really happy with. I'm going to have to take 2 and 2 and 2 and so on and crimp them together because we can't fire all of these individually just yet. So it's 99% done. I just have to do the final touches on this end and we can move on to finishing the engine harness. What Rob needs to create is a little plate that this glues onto back here with enough room to...
I think with the thickness of the tab itself, it's going to put it like here probably.
Yeah,
as far as like away from the intake manifold. So it's not touching it, but it'll be like... Ish.
Oh yeah, that's good. Honestly, if you made those now, that would be super helpful for me. Oh yeah,
the clip? Oh
yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's locked in.
All right, let's go.
This is the most exciting package I've gotten in a long time. Helix reached out to me and it couldn't have been more perfect time because I've been just sleeping here at the shop during the week with the crappiest mattress. They didn't just say, hey, here's a specific mattress. They have a whole online quiz where you say, hey, here's what I want, or here's what I'm looking for, and they recommend the type of mattress that you should have. And easy enough, it shows up like this. There she is. Look at her breathing in. You're gonna be pushing yourself this hard all the time. This is probably one of the most important things that you can do to take care of yourself.
Oh, yours is called the Sunset.
It's got a nice top layer right there. I asked for the cooling version, That is extremely comfortable because I'm a side sleeper. The coils are different strengths based on where your hips, your ribs, and your shoulders are gonna be. One of my personal favorite things about this mattress is that there's a 10-year warranty on it. Let me show you the sad situation that was. You can tell it's not just me here. I have a sleeping partner who keeps me rather warm, and that cooling cover is really gonna come in handy because this little furnace right here, well, it purrs and it makes a lot of heat. Are you ready to sleep better all day and then yell at us when you don't get enough pets? Now that my sleep is taken care of, it's your turn. If you're interested in making your sleep the best possible, go to helixsleep.com/RobDahm to get 27% off your order if you use Helix Partner 27, and you get 2 free pillows. On top of that, receive a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. This is the size of basically an 8-gauge wire, and it is the entire injector harness for all 24 injectors. I'm extremely happy with this. We did the time lapse of it, and it's 3 layers. It's the very center layer, which is the 12-gauge wire, so 24 amps, plus 1 layer of the blue wires and then another layer of the outer blue wires. And so it gets this really, look at just, I'm very happy with this. I just braided all the way to the end because this might end up being the core of our harness, just to keep this simple. But let me show you where this is going. I put all the stress relief on all 12. This is a 1 wire to 12 wire splice, so there's no question of getting enough current to these injectors. It's going to be halfway between these two, so somewhere here. And then the main harness for the entire engine is going to come up and do a similar butterfly looking thing over to the connector on this side. So the two will have some room just in case we change the angle, say we want it coming from out here or over here, you know, like there's a little bit of room to move this. All it needs to do is get to here. But I gave it a lot of excess because the ECU won't be here when it becomes a real car. Halfway here on this plate is where it's gonna split into all the different connectors here. The power line, this red line, is gonna go to here. So these two will connect into those two. And ultimately, when we run 2 R5s, they'll both be right there, and it'll all be ready to split into all of them. So right now, all I care about is getting this and this to here. Nothing else happens until they get to that split point. We're bringing all of the engine right to the ECU. Here comes one of the fun, tedious parts. All of these wires have to fit into here using these little gold pins. The hard part is what order, what angle. So when I make all my twists, it actually makes it really hard once you've taped it all up and have it where you want it to then completely twist it to the opposite side. So what I'm doing right now is the thicker core wires. We're gonna twist all of this, and it's gonna be a complete pain in the ass, but we're only gonna have to twist it this far because at that point right here, all of these wires are now gonna come in and start making love to the rest of these wires. So I figured this would be the cleaner, simpler one to make the core of the harness. All these thin 22 gauge wires make it so easy to send a lot of data and injectors and all that, but these make it a little bit harder to make it look good. I'm gonna work on this one and then really just pin the rest of those wires, and you're gonna see it just kind of all come together. 55 pins. Oh, actually, from this angle, I can see one of them's not fully seated. That pin is just a little low, and if I push on it, it'll fall out. So that's the sort of thing you have to double check. Rob has gotten these tacked into place right here. So we'll kind of make this more of a 90 instead of a big swoop. To get the piece of heat shrink over this area, which is gonna be nice and tight and clean, I'm gonna have to braid all of this, at least somewhat. So it's gonna be kind of a pain in the ass, but I just really need to only get to this point here, and then the rest ties the two together. But that's looking super clean. And he got the regulator mounted, planning out perfection. And you can see here's the two AN lines for the feed and return of the fuel rail. And it actually ends up working out really well. That's literally what we're gonna do. You could go either way. This could be a feed and return. It's just a whole system cycling fuel. But I think to keep it simple, this one's going to go up to the top one instead of trying to cross over to here and then this one's crossing over to get to some sort of regulator block. The return line kind of becomes one of the bigger issues. Is this line is going to have to play nice with everything else. It's the bigger line. We just have to make sure that that one can make its way back to the tank, keeping it clean, making it easy to service everything. That's, I think, the dream's really coming true on this. Before the three of us kill each other, I want to make sure we get this engine finished. Aeromotive's what's keeping our team together because we're all like, that's cool. But this is the second fuel filter that's going to be on this engine. And so this should be 10 micron filter, but this is actually 100 micron. And so this is going to go in before the pump. So basically this will pick up fuel. That fuel will be filtered through this so it doesn't destroy the damn pump. And then the pump will then send everything else through this 10 micron filter. And then that will then go to the injectors. Now the injectors actually have little baby, I think 10 micron filters somewhere in there, little hats on the top of those. At least most ID injectors do. So it's kind of filtered triplicate. But we're going to find a place to mount this. You can see the dream is looking good. The return line, this line, and the third line from over here kind of reaching around down to there. Rob's going to have to help figure this out. This is going to then go to the distribution to send it not just to these 3 fuel rails, but also for future expansion, 3 more ports go to the front of each turbo for those extra injectors to really basically turn on the afterburners. This filter will filter all 6 distribution points. This is my multicolored candy cane. This is actually one of those ugly flavors that tastes like crap instead of the traditional peppermint, but this is a very flexible, very full harness. Now, one of the things that you'll see I did is I actually did use some spare wire. This is one of the sections that you're going to see and see very clearly, and I want people not to wonder why it looks all dimpled. The same as this one, but this one, the wires actually, I could maybe do 1 fill wire, 2 maybe. With these 2 done, we can actually sheathe these, but we have no idea how far they need to be sheathed. Set it up to split right here. This will be a boot. We already spent a couple minutes looking at this, and first thing we wanted to make sure is that can this connector go through this area, as it can, because we also proposed this. They're split longer, and hell, I could even have this one come over like that. Something where it just looks less doofus. This is the main harness. It is all there. So the intention was that it can easily be removed. And there's nothing there stopping that. And then that it would be easy to install. Same with this one. All the way back to right in here. I've purposely made these shorter than they need to be because the actual ECU will go like this. But the wires are longer than they need to be because we have a little thing called 2 ECUs. So you see this as spare. These aren't spare at all. These are both the ignition and injection wires. So we can run it as a full 12 rotor on 2 computers. These actually have to be longer. So these can be shorter. A will go in to this length. But then spare A, for the time being, will reach around and also go into there. But there'll be enough length of wire to be able to take these out, repin them into the second ECU. All that entire 12 rotor runs through this part right there. This is an oil tank for I think a 1996 Champ car. Why do I have that? Because I have a 1997 and we actually found the correct one. But I bought this used from a guy. I now have 2 and I only need 1, and this one would have to be modified significantly to be used in anything we have, which is exactly what we're going to do. This actually has a lot of different complexity inside of it. On mine, the oil pulls from the bottom here. On this one, it pulls from the side, which actually pulls from the bottom. Maybe cut this off, put a fitting there. This one would actually dump back to the bottom and the circle of life would continue. This one does what a traditional tank does, and it shoots it up to the top and dribbles it down and breaks up all the air bubbles and then lets the thick solid oil get to the bottom. The air, on the other hand, comes out up here. We are actually going to use this tank because A, we need one, and B, we have one. Definitely going to be throwing a lot of oil through it, especially for the 12 rotor. I'm curious how the oil pressure is going to be, but that's a whole different story. We're going to cut this thing up and make it do what we need it to do. This is kind of selfish of me, but Rob was starting to unbox this. He took the plastic out. I was like, stop, please. I want to unbox one because this is one of my favorite pieces of equipment. This is Vibrant's Universal Catch Can, and this thing has so many features. First of all,
Smiley face.
Yeah, smiley face. Second of all, extendo. Yeah. But that's the basics. It's got the breather right here. It can have two ins. They're both 12 AN. You can kind of slot it based on all these things, but you're at the track, you can't get to here because of you didn't plan ahead because of the way you built your car. So you just pull this off and you have the cup to drink from. No, you can actually utilize this, but you can see, look at, there's the baffling, some stainless little wool there, this baffle as well, and of course this screen. So what you're going to end up having, especially on a rotary, is this is going to smell like 90% ethanol. You can either do that, and that's O-ringed. It has that nice clean engagement right there. Or it also does it right down here. So if you wanted to pop the bottom off, or run the bottom, have a little petcock, just choices there. But this thing's so badass, and so we're going to put this onto the top of the IndyCar thing, and Rob's going to take it from there. But I've never gotten to unbox one of these. This is the result. That is the core of a 12 rotor harness meant to fire both ways as a 6 rotor and a 12 rotor. And my God, I'm gonna try to explain this. You'll see that I left these extra long for a really good reason. No matter what I do, when I go to swap to 2 R5s, I have to repin things anyway. So I made them long, and sadly with $1 a pin, it's about $130 in pins that I'm gonna have to redo. I'm just making them all long, we don't know what we don't know. So we'll start out slow. There are 24 coils and there are 24 injectors. Each rotor has 2. Simple concept. Next simple concept is that right now, 2 rotors fire at the same time. So if there's 2 here and 2 here, these are crimped. That gave me all the confidence in the world to move forward. Here's where we have a problem. I started crimping them 1 through 12, 1 through 12. Split it, do the shuffle, easy, right? Wrong, absolutely wrong. So if I crimp 1 and 13, well, that's a rotor here and a rotor over here. They don't fire ever at the same time. In fact, rotor 1 fires with rotor 4, which is actually pin 1 and pin 7, pin 2 and pin 8, but then 3 and 5 and 4 and 6 all fire. And then it gets even crazier because these connectors here are actually only 12 pins. Some of the things that are crimped together fire 1 here, 1 here. I tried splitting this up so that way I could have it where, okay, we have 2 computers. Well, the problem with that is that they're not all split up that way because as soon as we go to fire it as a 12 rotor, it's not the same thing at all. 2 different ECUs firing 6 different rotors, it just gets so complicated. And so I actually drew this thing out right here. This is my lifeblood. I've taken like 5 different pictures of this. I uploaded it on Patreon because not only is it not evenly divided, this A has 8 injectors and 8 igniters, and B has 4. So it's not even like I can split them half and half. So this is rotor 1 through rotor 6, but one of the injectors. Pin 1 is injector 1 and 7. Pin 2 is injector 3 and 5. Pin 3 is 9 and 15. So that automatically means that these 2 are interconnected. And then pin 4 is 11 and 13. So again, those are 2 are connected. Pin 5 is 17 and 23. Pin 6 is 19 and 21. 7 is 2 and 8, goes backwards. And then 8 is 4 and 6. And then on the other connector, 10 and 16, 12 and 14, 18 and 24, 20 and 22. And this is the only way you can fire this thing up right now. This isn't like, oh, I invented this and I want to make it super complicated. I have to fire it up as a 6 rotor, and in the future, I have to fire it up as 2 6 rotors, 1 ECU on each of the 6 rotors. So this actually will copy and paste. This first one will get all of these. The second set will get all of these. To set it up for a 6 rotor and to set it up as a 12 rotor are 2 totally different setups. If you look at this is the engine right now. So if we set it like this, so rotor 1 is the front center one, and that's like on every rotary engine. Rotor 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I arbitrarily chose that this is 5, 6, 7, 8, for this to be 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, to fire this as a 6 rotor, rotor 1 is actually rotor 1 and rotor 4. Rotor 2 is actually rotor 2 and rotor 3. Rotor 3 is 5 and 8. 4 is 6 and 7. 5, 9, and 12. 6 is 10 and 11. And again, leading, trailing, leading, trailing, leading, trailing is another back and forth, back and forth, back and forth problem. And then primary and secondary stages on injectors, you can see that this just gets out of hand absolutely quickly. The good news is this core harness is done. There's nothing going to be changed to it, and the only changes are going to be anywhere where you see excess wire. So we are on the eve, I believe, I feel very strongly saying this, of the first test fire. So you're going to be seeing this engine turning over quite a bit, because once I crimp this special cable right here, we will now know the position of the 12 rotor and all 12 rotors. While I'm doing that, Rob is going to be getting the oil system and the fuel system working. Now again, this is another thing where we're going to be using some kind of patches, because the final version is going to go into a car. We want to make those hoses when we get to that point. But check out the progress where he's at and how close we are to firing this damn engine. This is a little setup that Isaiah first came up with on the 3 rotor. These are 3 8AN outputs. This is 110. This will then just go to 1, 2, and 3 hoses. So all 3 will come out of the filter, go to all 3 of those. They'll go through the rails, come back to 1, 2, and 3 here, and go back down into the tanks. I love that we use this. So that's the pickup to go to the pump, and this one is the return. So when the oil comes off of the motor, it's actually going to go into here, and the engineers at Indy built it to go up and break up the air and go through here. So then the excess air will come out of here, go into the catch can, the vibrant. So those 2 systems have to be operational at that level for us to test fire this motor. I'm not worried about the turbos at the moment. If we go to run it, I would take them off. But for now, we're just gonna be moving shit around for no reason. We just got in all of the spare parts to make our old vibrant clamps whole again. So these are the old 4 rotor ones, but we're gonna have ultimately all this intake stuff, but that's not for the first test fire. But we've got the reducers to take this from this size down to here. And in fact, I'll show you. A nice stainless reducer or increaser, whichever way you want to look at it. And so that'll take that down to 4-inch and make that more manageable. As well as all the clamps, as well as all the fittings for the turbo oil line. That's not now. That's coming up right after we fire it up for the first time, then we hook up the turbos. But whew, here we go. This is going to be one hell of a ride. This is the 95% complete core harness for this damn thing. The only thing I'm missing, and the connector's in the mail, is this one. And this is actually all spare stuff. Joel wants the montage of click, 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 and I'm gonna edge him out on this one. But what I am gonna do is get my own nut and unbox the R5 that is actually going back into the 4 rotor, but we're gonna use it on this one. That never gets old. I mean, quite frankly, when you spend that much money on something, it better be like this, and this kind of sets the standard for what you should get. So this is the R5. It's got 12 different 8 amp outputs, and it's got 4 25 amp outputs. These are all going to be like starters and transmission stuff, could be headlights, brake lights, that sort of stuff. Perfect for those. And then I'm actually going to be running the fuel system off of one, the injectors off of another. I'm actually going to use one of these for the starters, both, just keep it simple right now. On top of all that, it happens to also be a computer. We have all of these connectors here And I'm going to test fit them before we go any further. When you're building like a V8 or something with 8 injectors and ignition, you'll end up just using this plug. And actually, this plug is like 95% compatible with the R3, which is sitting right here. You can see this one and this one are used here. And there's only like 2 pins that change from this one to this one. So you can start with the R3 and then upgrade. This one should plug in. Joel, you ready for the click?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, so it should click in like that. Was that good? That was a good shot.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. The sound on this one, guys, is gonna be just incredible. It's gonna sound really, really good like that. Just really, ASMR. And finally, this one. Actually, I'm gonna just click in. Oh yeah! I got played at my own damn game. And then this one goes in to this one. I'm not gonna click that one in because that one I don't want to mess with too many times. We're gonna put this on, and then on top of that, 2 of the cables that come with this, cable ends, is in here.
The power?
Yeah, these are some of the nicest and most intimidating connectors. These are the rad sock, and they are actually a different size. You can actually see this right here. The R3s doesn't require as much current. So I made the mistake earlier. I was like, oh, I'll just transfer this over. This one can handle 200 amps continuous, and this one I think is 120 amps continuous, something to that effect. I purposely designed these in line because these are unforgiving connectors. The size of the cable that's going in there, I think it's like 1/0, maybe even 1 gauge at minimum. They're just big cables. So I wanted to make sure it looked clean, easy to inspect, and we'll swap from this early test unit to the correct one and start making cables, plug the core harness in, plug it into here, and then I'm gonna spend the next couple hours testing and clicking these in without Joel. This is the final countdown. We are finally here where we feel confident that we can take all of the intake runners off, take all the tape down, put the actual gaskets on there, and bolt this on for the final time. You can see just hints of all the other stuff that's all coming together. I just crimped these. This will go onto the E-gate. This is this throttle body. This is this throttle body. You can just see it start to really come together. My goal is that you just unplug this. The harness will stay with this manifold. And so while we're cleaning everything out for the final time, all of these connectors, everything just stays with it. For me personally, another 6 hours of work, and this thing's gonna be ready to be turned over. We're at light spirits right now. I'm gonna machine it flat. I've used the manual mill several times to do this exact thing, because even with the sloppiness in this, it's still way better than the 40 thousandths that it's out. That's what gets done. Look at that. That's the gratifying part in all those videos, is to show you that it starts out thin and ends thin. It's not on an angle and just gets worse. I was expecting when the flip happened that it was gonna be like cutting like this or cutting like that. It lined up almost perfectly. So this is just with back forth 2-3 times, and you can see how much better. But I was being about 1,000th conservative on my second pass. That's what you can see is it's showing that area first. I just made sure I could feel the slightest bit, but I wasn't going over. And it's wild to kind of see that show up. So I got these to take off IndyCar wheel things, but this couldn't have been more perfect timing.
It's bending them out.
Yeah.
Brand new.
That filter's just been sitting there for years. I don't want to have like metal chunks hidden inside of it and surprise us with an adventure. I assembled the motor long enough ago that I don't remember what this one does, but I was like, that can't be an oil out. I think that's an oil in, but like where would it have came from? And then I was like, wait, maybe over here, because he had this fitting here that we just capped off. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then he would have had a hose to it. And I dug through the hoses. It literally goes right there to there. So we might have to remake this one Today is the day, and you can actually tell everybody is very committed to making it happen because we're all quiet, working hard, and almost forgetting to film the most important part, which is putting it together for the final time, checking, crimping, all of that. And so Rob's getting all of the exhaust finalized. We've got the intakes ready to go back on. I've got my manifold with my wiring going through it. They're just doing all of those things that really finalize the build, which is that, you know, the 80-20 rule. It is 2 p.m. right now. I realistically expect this thing to start firing or attempting to fire maybe 10, 11 p.m. Up until then, though, we're gonna have some fun times cranking our hog as I get this figured out. Mind you, this is not connected right now, but we gotta figure out timing, make sure all the spark plugs, you know, you can just see that anything that you would do on a 2-rotor, you now have 6 times that on this, and it's 10 times harder because they can all get one wire swapped and there goes the motor. So you're gonna see a nice little probably montage of us putting it together for the final time, so you see what we're running, and then it's time to jump on the Haltech and get the throttles, get the sensors, get all that stuff working. Very exciting moment. With 24 spark plugs and spark plug wires under here, it made it really hard to figure out where I'm going to run the alternator wire. And in this case, I found a really clean path against the smooth, nothing to mount to, surface back here. And so that gives me enough room to get to all the spark plugs, check them. This one's probably the hardest one. This is a 2-aught gauge wire. I bent this at a 45-degree angle to get it over here, and then it hides right against the body. That's gonna go straight along and go out the back. The wire comes out this hole here and then goes straight to this backside of this connector. Nice and clean, away from everything else. I made the same little stubby here. This is ground to the chassis and to the bell housing here, and it goes to the backside of the main one here. I'm purposely gonna run a slightly smaller gauge wire to the starters, so that way the main wire that is gonna go off of this to these posts, so both batteries, they'll get more voltage. Not that they need more current, but they won't drop till 8 volts as easily because this wire's got more resistance. I'm gonna make that alternator wire, and then you're just gonna see things just like look simpler because I'm hiding everything away, so you almost don't notice it's there. That's really what Tyson intended with this engine, and I'm trying to follow that design cue. It is currently 6:15, and Rob and I are both just fully immersed into this thing. And so Joel has been more of like the art director for this whole thing, but he also assigned himself the intimacy coordinator, and I don't know if I like that. While he handles the art of it, I think you're gonna be a little.
You're doing it?
Yeah, this really is the beginning of it. I saved Joel this entire gold mine down here. They're all zip tied in place, but I did not click a single one of these in. I have verified each coil is the correct number, but I'm gonna go ahead and go southpaw and give you guys that little bit of ASMR after all of my hard work. These are not the easiest. core of this is the Nexus R5. Haltech is my absolute lifeblood for this. We have a UC10 coming in just to show you guys how cool this is. The buttons, which I'm gonna be frantically pressing when shit goes wrong. We've got power for days. This is just the power to all of the ignition. That is 24 coils. Those can use up to 120 amps of current at full tilt. That is a very realistic number, and that's why we have a Wasp 320 amp alternator. So that thing can make a lot of power. Everything's very thick gauge for the obvious reasons here. We will have EGTs, we will have oxygen sensors. We have none of that right now because the whole goal is just to fire it up. To fire it up, we have multiple batteries. The big battery out of the Lincoln, and then the actually probably bigger battery is the anti-gravity one right there. So each battery is gonna go to one starter from Wasp as well, and that will allow us to turn this thing over at a reasonable speed. We're using the IndyCar's dry sump oil tank. So the oil is gonna sit in this tank, and I hope to God does not gush straight out of here. But you guys know we're gonna be using break-in oil from Valvoline and then go to Restore and Protect. VR1 maybe for the high horsepower stuff, but Restore and Protect is, you'll see how impressive that is. As well as obviously filtering the shit out of all that oil. And then we have this tank here, which is just to prove a point. That this is actually the whole Holley setup out of the 4-rotor originally. And then that is simply, basically not enough to run this thing at more than 1,200 horsepower on ethanol, which means 600 horsepower on methanol. And that is correct. We are going to be running this on methanol, not tonight. So all of that goes to the Aeromotive massive filter and then is distributed through all of these fuel rails that myself and Ethan designed and then Rob welded together. So all of that goes to the Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. So we've got all the sensors that I love to have. Oil pressure, fuel pressure, air temp, air pressure. We've got 2 throttle bodies in the front. One of those is gonna be deactivated for tonight. Coincidentally, these are actually both from the 4-rotor. So this one is just gonna stay closed. This one is going to do all of our work for us. We are not going to be putting this turbo on, mostly because the heart of this is right here. This is the trigger wheel, and we need to know exactly where the engine is in rotation to fire everything. So what you're gonna see here is I've worked very hard to set the engine at 0. The engine is sitting where these are flat. This engine is ready to fire at 0 on rotor 1. Rob is gonna be manning the oil pump right here. This is a dry sump oil tank, meaning that the oil does not sit in a pan underneath the engine. This is vacuuming and then pumping oil to that tank over there. You guys know how obsessed I am about this, and hopefully this will read. Now, what's very interesting is this engine is sitting at 0 right now, meaning that when we flash it with this gun, this 0 better line up with this mark right here, the center of the bolt, essentially. You'll notice that there's a flat spot here that's called missing tooth. This is a 60 wheel -2, 60-2. You can actually tell that I'm gonna end up doing something where it's basically 180 degrees off from when it first senses this. Because here's the sensor, even though my marks are online, the sensor is just sitting way over here in the middle of all these teeth. It doesn't know what that means. It needs this to reset and go, okay, I'm now 180 degrees off from that. The alternator is also not going to be firing up tonight because we're just turning it over. We're not going to be idling it much. We might see some flames. We might get some pops. And that's honestly all we could hope for. So we're going to be building oil pressure, fuel pressure, and then seeing if we can fire this thing up on the very first time it attempts to fire. So you're going to see it turn over quite a bit, and that's just because I'm testing this. Ignition system is off, so that way we don't set ourselves up for failure. We are actually going to be using this bucket of Valvoline. This is not something that is like, oh, Rob's got something special that we don't. This is actually just break-in oil. We're actually going to use it as purging oil. So we're going to use that, fill this thing up, have it go through the whole system once, and then straight up get rid of it. So we're going to be using off-the-shelf stuff from Valvoline for the actual operation of the car. There's a lot of weird shit in this engine, and so we're actually using this as sacrificial oil, not anything special. I am going to plug this in for the first time. That I'm going to have to tighten. But this, I've disconnected my 2 main lines. And
oh my goodness gracious. You did not see that.
So Rob just poured metal into the dry sump tank, which is really a good thing. That's really a,
it's exactly.
Oh yeah, wait, hang on. I'm getting no, that's a bad thing.
I didn't mean to. It was on the top of the thing.
I hear it. Okay, stop.
Oh
You
yeah.
can hear it. Yes.
Yeah. After midnight.
There's tons of metal in it. Is it really? Yeah.
What do you do, Robert?
Yeah. I swear to God. Wait, no, that's air. It's air. It's air. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me go boss.
Okay. You called it. You called it. You called it.
That's why I was filming.
We've been through a variety of challenges to get to this moment, and it's pretty standard for any new car build. Once you get used to it, it makes it easier, but you can't really Google how to do this. So what we're gonna do is see if this will flash and tell me if this 0 is gonna line up with this bolt right here, and that'll tell me how close I am on guessing top dead center on this motor. So we're gonna go ahead and, Rob's got a 2-second timer, and we're gonna see if this thing flashes. Go for it, Rob. Oh, when it flashed, I don't know if it'll show up on that. I saw my 0 etched mark. I saw it right there. I saw it right there. So I guessed it perfectly with that shit math. So this engine's gonna start. Absolutely gonna start. Okay. That took so much less time than I expected. That validates everything. So if there was fuel in this motor, that spark, that's showing you that coil fired at top dead center at 0 degrees, the engine would have started. So fuel's next. So I finally got the lift pump working, and we did find a leak on the rail in the center. So, no.
Where's that even coming from?
Yeah, that's coming from the welded part of the rail.
Definitely, but bottom side of it looks like.
I think what I want to do is safely analyze the situation and still turn it over and get it to pop and see if it'll turn on. We're just gonna make sure we have things like water and fire extinguishers on hand for that situation. Okay, so I've got blast zone right at my crotch.
This is not responsible at all, but...
No, but this actually is also extremely responsible because...
It's Thanksgiving, you know?
I want to give thanks to doing this. I believe if this thing fires up, I'm thinking out loud, I'm gonna turn it on, and then all I'm gonna do is pop this, and that'll turn off the ignition instantly. All right, let's do it. It is pouring.
Oh yeah, it's coming over here.
See it up front.
Yeah, there's a lot of leaks.
Is it really?
Okay. Oh.
Oh no.
Okay.
All right, let's clean up a little first.
Let's clean up. Yeah, we got.
It's dripping all over.
Yeah. On those last couple of turnovers, the injectors, I didn't have them even plugged in. So even though there's fuel going through the rails, the injectors were not turning on. So engine's not flooded, nothing like that. Check this out. Haltech has just continued to improve this. This might have been out for a little while, but it's new to me. And so look at all these different stages of injectors. Watch, listen to this. This is really cool. And so you can feel it right there. And then stage 2. So what you're hearing is that it's firing 6 rotors and going back, 6 rotors and going back, but it's firing 2 at the same time. And stage 1 is one of these, stage 2 is the other one. And so you can hear it. We're not missing a beat. So every injector is firing, and it's firing in the correct order. Because if I go to stage 2 of rotor 3, oddly enough, here, I can feel that clicking. And that actually should also be the same one. And there it is, I can feel it. All of our injectors are working in the correct order, which means that the ignition is also in the correct order, which is actually the hardest thing about all this. So I'm gonna go ahead, injectors are on, and we're gonna see if she's willing to fire up, and then that's it for tonight. I'm ready for you, Rob. the good news here is this is straight up not going to run long at all, because it can't. So what we're going to do is ultimately just spray this like starter fluid and start it. So Rob, I'm going to have you on the starter.
Starter?
Yeah, so it's going to you just press the start stop button, it's going to run for 4 seconds.
Okay.
Go for it. That's something. One more time.
I have a feeling it's only going into the center.
Yeah, you're right. Needless to say, we've got a little bit more work to do, but none of us have ever seen this engine in this sort of detail. So there's a lot to learn, and we're making some serious progress. And we're going to spin this thing twice as fast, because that's really going to help us start it. Okay, I think I definitely found what stopped our party this evening. You can see it on the corner of the screen. Nice. All fuel.